Boxing is a sport that thrives on its stars. Names like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather have carried the sport through decades, drawing fans and keeping it alive. Today, one name stands out in the combat sports world: Kamaru Usman, known as the Nigerian Nightmare. Usman has dominated the UFC's welterweight division and even crossed over into boxing discussions. But what happens if Usman, a towering figure in combat sports, falters? Could his downfall shake the foundation of boxing itself? This video explores Usman's influence, the connection between MMA and boxing, and whether boxing's core could be rocked if Usman crumbles. Who is Kamaru Usman? Kamaru Usman is a mixed martial artist, MMA fighter, born in Nigeria and raised in the United States. He's the former UFC welterweight champion, holding one of the longest title reigns in the division's history. Usman's fighting style is a mix of powerful wrestling, precise striking, and relentless pressure. His dominance in the UFC made him a household name among fight fans. But why does Usman matter to boxing, a sport separate from MMA? Usman's connection to boxing comes from the growing crossover between MMA and boxing. Fans love seeing MMA fighters test their skills in the boxing ring. Matches like Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather in 2017 showed how these crossover fights can generate massive attention. Usman, with his crisp striking and star power, is often mentioned as a potential boxing crossover candidate. His name alone draws interest, and a stumble in his career could ripple beyond MMA into boxing. The crossover craze. The crossover between MMA and boxing isn't new, but it's bigger than ever. Fans are fascinated by the idea of fighters from different sports facing off. MMA fighters like McGregor, Francis Ngannou, and now Usman are seen as potential boxing stars because of their striking skills. These crossover fights bring in huge audiences, often outshining traditional boxing matches. For example, McGregor versus Mayweather was one of the highest grossing pay-per-view events ever, earning over $600 million. Why does this matter? Boxing relies on big events to stay relevant. Traditional boxing has struggled to produce new stars who can match the draw of past legends. Meanwhile, MMA fighters like Usman bring fresh energy and fan bases. If Usman were to crumble, say by losing badly in a boxing match or fading in his MMA career, it could hurt the hype around these crossover events. Without that hype, boxing might lose some of its spotlight. What does crumbling mean for Usman? When we say Usman crumbles, we're talking about a major setback. This could be a knockout loss in the UFC, a failed boxing crossover attempt, or a string of defeats that dims his star power. Usman is 38 years old in 2025, and age is a factor in combat sports. Fighters slow down, reflexes fade, and younger opponents emerge. Usman has already faced challenges, like his knockout loss to Leon Edwards in 2022, which ended his title reign. Another big loss could make fans question his invincibility. A crumbling Usman might also mean a failed boxing venture. Imagine Usman stepping into the ring against a top boxer like Canelo Alvarez or Terrence Crawford. If he gets outclassed, it could damage his reputation and the appeal of MMA boxing crossovers. Fans might lose interest in seeing MMA fighters try boxing, thinking they can't compete. This could hurt boxing's ability to draw big crowds for these hybrid events. Boxing's fragile core. Boxing's core is its ability to captivate fans with drama, skill, and larger-than-life personalities. But the sport has cracks. It struggles with issues like mismatched fights, controversial judging, and a lack of unified champions. Promoters often prioritize money over quality, leaving fans frustrated. In 2025, boxing is still popular, but it's not the cultural giant it once was. MMA, with its fast-paced action and clear rankings, has stolen some of boxing's thunder. Boxing leans on crossover fights to stay relevant. These events bring in casual fans who might not watch traditional boxing matches. If Usman, one of the biggest names in combat sports, fails to deliver in a boxing ring, it could make fans doubt the value of these crossovers. Without successful crossovers, boxing might struggle to attract new viewers, especially younger ones who prefer MMA's excitement. The ripple effect of Usman's fall. If Usman crumbles, the impact could be significant for both MMA and boxing. In MMA, his fall might open up opportunities for new stars to rise, which can be good for the UFC's long-term growth. However, in boxing, the consequences could be more damaging. Usman is a popular, marketable athlete with global appeal, and if he fails in boxing, promoters may become hesitant to book other MMA fighters, leading to fewer crossover fights and a potential drop in revenue. Casual fans might lose interest in MMA versus boxing matchups, seeing them as one-sided, and boxing could lose both attention and future stars. Could boxing recover? Boxing has survived tough times before. It weathered scandals, declining popularity, and competition from other sports. If Usman crumbles, boxing wouldn't collapse overnight. The sport has other stars like Canelo Alvarez, Ryan Garcia, and Devin Haney who can carry the torch. Plus, boxing has a rich history and global reach that keeps it alive. To recover, boxing would need to focus on building its own stars instead of relying on MMA crossovers. Promoters could invest in young talent, create compelling rivalries, and unify titles to excite fans. For example, a mega fight between Terrence Crawford and Jaron Ennis could reignite interest in traditional boxing. Boxing could also embrace new formats like shorter fights or tournaments to appeal to modern audiences. Another way to recover is by learning from MMA. The UFC's success comes from its clear structure, frequent events, and fighter accessibility. Boxing could adopt similar strategies, like better storytelling and more fan engagement to rebuild its core. Usman's role in boxing's future. Usman's success or failure could shape boxing's path. If he thrives in a crossover fight, it could spark a new wave of MMA boxing events, bringing in money and attention. A strong performance would prove MMA fighters can hang with boxers, keeping fans excited. But if he crumbles, boxing might need to rethink its reliance on crossovers and focus on its own talent. Usman himself seems aware of his influence. In interviews, he's expressed interest in boxing but knows the risks. He said he'd only take a boxing match if the opponent and timing are right. This caution shows he understands what's at stake, not just for him, but for both sports. The bigger picture. The question of whether Usman's downfall would rock boxing's core ties into a larger issue: how combat sports stay relevant in a changing world. Fans today have endless entertainment options. From streaming to gaming to social media, boxing and MMA must compete for attention, and they often do so by leaning on larger-than-life figures like Usman. If Usman crumbles, it wouldn't be the end of boxing. The sport has too much history and resilience for that. But it could be a wake-up call. Boxing would need to adapt, innovate, and find new ways to connect with fans. In conclusion, Kamaru Usman is more than an MMA champion. He's a symbol of the growing bond between MMA and boxing. His success or failure could sway the future of both sports. If Usman crumbles, boxing's core might wobble, but it won't collapse. Still, Usman's downfall would highlight boxing's need to build its own stars and reduce its reliance on crossovers. In the end, boxing's fate lies not in Usman's hands, but in its ability to adapt and inspire the next generation of fans. Happy you liked it. Please subscribe. Your support truly matters. Thank you.